I heard it again last night. That word. Ma. Soft and warm like honey dripping from her lips. She said it with such tenderness that for a split second my heart lifted. But then I realized something. She wasn't talking to me. She was on the phone. In the guest room. Door half closed. Voice low and careful like she was guarding a secret. I stood in the hallway with a cup of tea in my hands. Steam rising. Heart sinking. Ma. She said it again. I wanted to knock. I wanted to push that door open and ask her who she was talking to. But something stopped me. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was respect. Or maybe it was that terrible instinct we all have when we know the answer will hurt more than the question. So I walked away. I went back to my room and sat on the edge of my bed. The tea went cold in my hands. I stared at the wall and felt something crack inside me. Not loudly. Not violently. Just a quiet fracture. The kind that doesn't bleed but never really heals. This wasn't the first time. It had been happening for weeks now. Maybe even months. Late night calls. Whispered conversations. That word slipping through the cracks of her carefully closed door like smoke. Ma. Never to me. Never in the daylight. Never when we were together in the kitchen or folding laundry or watching television. Only in those secret hours when she thought no one was listening. And the worst part? I couldn't even be angry. Not really. Because what right did I have to demand that word from her? What claim did I hold over something so sacred? I'm not her mother. I'm her mother-in-law. And maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's always been the problem. No matter how much love I poured into this relationship, no matter how many times I tried to be more than just a title, I would always be the woman who married into her life. Not the woman who gave her life. But God, it hurt. It hurt because I tried. I really tried. When she first came into our family, I opened my arms wide. I smiled. I cooked her favorite meals. I asked about her day. I listened when she cried. I celebrated when she laughed. I thought we were building something real. And maybe we were. But somewhere along the way a wall went up. Invisible but solid. She started closing doors. Lowering her voice. Glancing at her phone and then at me like she was calculating how much I could hear. I told myself I was imagining things. I told myself she just needed space. That all young women need distance from their in-laws. That it was natural. Healthy even. But then I heard her say it. Ma. And I knew. I wasn't imagining anything. There was someone else. Someone she trusted more. Someone she called in the dark when she needed comfort. And it wasn't me. I lay awake that night staring at the ceiling. My husband was asleep beside me. His breathing slow and steady. Unaware. Unbothered. He didn't hear what I heard. He didn't feel what I felt. I thought about waking him. Shaking his shoulder and whispering, "Do you know who she talks to every night?" But I didn't. Because what would he say? What could he say? She's allowed to talk to whoever she wants. And he'd be right. But it didn't make it hurt any less. I thought about all the moments I had tried to be there for her. The day she got food poisoning and I stayed up with her all night. The time she lost her job and I held her while she cried. The afternoon we spent shopping for furniture for their new apartment and she asked my opinion on every single piece. I thought she valued me. I thought I mattered. But if I mattered, why was she whispering to someone else in the middle of the night? I got out of bed quietly. My feet cold against the wooden floor. I walked to the window and looked out at the street. Empty. Dark. A single street light flickering like it couldn't decide whether to stay or go. I felt like that light. Flickering. Uncertain. Fading. I pressed my forehead against the glass and closed my eyes. I wanted to cry but the tears wouldn't come. Maybe I was too tired. Maybe I was too confused. Or maybe I was just too afraid of what crying would mean. It would mean admitting that I was hurt. That I was jealous. That I wanted something from her that she wasn't willing to give. And I hated that. I hated feeling needy. I hated feeling small. I hated standing in my own home feeling like an outsider. The next morning she came down for breakfast like nothing had happened. Hair pulled back in a ponytail. Smile polite and distant. She poured herself coffee and sat at the table scrolling through her phone. "Good morning," I said. "Morning," she replied without looking up. I wanted to ask her. Right then. Right there. Who were you talking to last night? Who do you call mom when I'm standing right here? But I didn't. Instead, I cracked eggs into a pan and listened to the sizzle. I made toast. I set the table. I played the role I'd been playing for years. The good mother-in-law. The patient one. The one who never asked too many questions. My son came down a few minutes later. He kissed his wife on the head and grabbed a piece of toast. He asked her how she slept and she said fine. He asked me how I slept and I said fine too. We were all fine. Except we weren't. At least I wasn't. But I smiled. I poured more coffee. I pretended like my heart wasn't heavy with questions I couldn't ask. That evening I heard it again. I was folding laundry in the hallway when her door clicked shut. A few seconds later her voice drifted out. Soft. Tender. Careful. Mom, I miss you so much. I froze. My hands gripping a towel so tightly my knuckles turned white. Ma. There it was again. I leaned closer to the door without meaning to. I told myself I shouldn't listen. That this was private. That I had no right. But I couldn't move. I heard her laugh. A small breathy sound. Then she said something I couldn't make out. Then silence. Then another soft laugh. She sounded happy. Happier than I'd heard her sound in weeks. And it broke something in me. Not because she was happy. But because that happiness didn't include me. It didn't even acknowledge me. I was standing 3 feet away and I might as well have been invisible. I forced myself to walk away. I carried the laundry to my room and closed the door. I sat on the bed and stared at the folded towels and felt a heaviness settle over me like fog. This wasn't jealousy. Or maybe it was. But it felt bigger than that. It felt like grief. Like mourning something I thought I had but never really did. I thought about my own mother. How she used to braid my hair before school. How she hummed while she cooked. How she always knew when something was wrong even when I didn't say a word. I wanted to be that for someone. I thought I could be that for her. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe some bonds can't be built. Maybe some connections are just born. And no matter how hard you try, no matter how much love you offer, you'll always be second. Or third. Or not even on the list at all. That night I lay in bed again. Eyes open. Mind racing. My husband reached for my hand in his sleep and I held it. But it didn't comfort me the way it usually did. Because he didn't know. He didn't see. He didn't hear the quiet rejection that was happening under his own roof. And I didn't know how to tell him. I didn't even know if I should. Because what if I was overreacting? What if this was normal? What if every daughter-in-law calls someone else mom and I was just too sensitive to handle it? But deep down I knew. This wasn't about sensitivity. This was about trust. And somewhere along the way she had decided I wasn't the person she could trust. I thought about the early days. When she first moved in. How nervous she seemed. How eager to please. She asked me how I liked my tea. She folded towels the way I showed her. She laughed at my jokes even when they weren't funny. I thought we were bonding. But maybe she was just performing. Maybe I was too. Maybe we were both pretending to be something we weren't. And now the cracks were starting to show. I turned onto my side and stared at the dark outline of the dresser across the room. My wedding photo sat on top of it. Me and my husband. Young. Smiling. Full of hope. I wondered if his mother ever felt this way. If she ever stood outside a door listening to me talk to someone else. If she ever felt like she wasn't enough. I didn't think so. I always called her mom. From the very beginning. Because that's what you do. That's what I thought you were supposed to do. You marry into a family and you make space for them in your heart. You honor them. You include them. But maybe that was just me. Maybe not everyone feels that way. Maybe some people keep their hearts locked tight and only hand out keys to a chosen few. And maybe I wasn't chosen. The thought made my chest ache. I closed my eyes and tried to sleep, but all I could hear was her voice. Ma. That soft warm word that wasn't meant for me. I wondered who it was meant for. Her real mother, obviously. But why the secrecy? Why the closed doors and whispered tones? Was she ashamed of me? Did she think I'd be upset if I knew she still talked to her own mother? I wouldn't be. I'd understand. I'd encourage it even. But the hiding. The secrecy. That's what hurt. Because it meant she didn't trust me with the truth. And if she didn't trust me with something as simple as a phone call, how could I ever hope to build something deeper? I pulled the blanket up to my chin and felt the weight of it press against me. Heavy. Warm. Suffocating almost. I thought about tomorrow. How I'd wake up and make breakfast again. How I'd smile and ask her how she slept. How I'd pretend I didn't hear anything. How I'd keep playing the role of the understanding mother-in-law who never asks too many questions. But inside I'd be wondering. Always wondering. Who is she really? And who am I to her? Because right now I didn't know. And that scared me more than anything. I remember the first time I saw her. She was standing in our living room holding my son's hand. Her eyes wide and nervous. Her smile small and uncertain. She wore a blue dress that day. Simple but elegant. Hair falling in soft waves over her shoulders. My son looked at her like she was the sun. And I thought, she's the one. I knew it instantly. Not because of anything she said or did. But because of the way he looked at her. Like he'd found something he didn't even know he was searching for. So I smiled. I walked over. I took her hands in mine and I said, welcome to the family. She blinked at me. Surprised. Maybe even a little relieved. Thank you, she whispered. And I meant it. I wanted her to feel welcome. I wanted her to feel safe. I wanted her to know that this house wasn't just my son's home. It was hers too. In the weeks that followed, I did everything I could to make that true. I asked her what she liked to eat. She said she loved pasta, so I learned 3 new recipes. I made her favorite tea every morning without her having to ask. I invited her to sit with me while I cooked so we could talk. I wanted to know her. Really know her. She told me about her childhood. How she grew up in a small town. How her parents worked long hours and she spent most of her time reading. How she dreamed of traveling the world but never had the chance. I listened. I asked questions. I shared my own stories too. About my life before marriage. About my dreams. About the things I gave up and the things I gained. She seemed interested. She laughed at the right moments. She nodded. She asked follow-up questions. I thought we were connecting. One afternoon she mentioned she wanted to learn how to bake bread. I immediately offered to teach her. We spent the whole day in the kitchen. Flour on our hands. Dough rising on the counter. The smell of yeast filling the house. She kneaded the dough carefully. Her movements slow and unsure. You're doing great, I told her. She smiled at me. A real smile. The kind that reaches your eyes. Thank you for teaching me, she said. Of course, I replied. Anytime. And I meant it. I wanted to be more than just her mother-in-law. I wanted to be someone she could turn to. Someone she trusted. Someone she felt safe with. When the bread came out of the oven golden and perfect, she took a photo of it. She sent it to someone. Her face lit up as she typed. Who are you sending that to? I asked lightly. Oh, just my mom, she said quickly. She loves homemade bread. I nodded. Of course. That makes sense. But something in her tone made me pause. It was too quick. Too defensive. Like she felt guilty for mentioning her mother in front of me. I brushed it off. I told myself I was overthinking. But looking back now, I wonder if that was the first crack. The first sign that she saw me as a threat. Or worse. As someone she had to manage. As the months went on, I continued to try. When she started her new job, I made her lunch every day. Packed it neatly in a container with a little note. You've got this. Or, have a great day. She always thanked me. But she stopped bringing the containers home. I asked her about it once and she said, oh, I forgot them at work. I'll bring them tomorrow. She never did. I didn't mention it again. When she got sick with a terrible flu, I took care of her. I made soup. I brought her medicine. I sat by her bed and placed a cool cloth on her forehead while she slept. She woke up once and looked at me with tired eyes. You don't have to do this, she said softly. I want to, I replied. She didn't say anything after that. Just closed her eyes again. I thought I was helping. But maybe she felt smothered. Maybe she wanted space and I was too eager to give her love. I don't know. I wish I did. There was a day when she came home upset. I could see it the moment she walked through the door. Her shoulders tight. Her jaw clenched. Eyes red like she'd been crying. I asked her what was wrong. She shook her head. Nothing. Just a long day. I didn't push. But I made her favorite tea and sat with her on the couch. We didn't talk. We just sat there. Side by side. In silence. After a while she rested her head on my shoulder. Just for a moment. And I felt my heart swell. I thought, this is it. This is the breakthrough. She's letting me in. But then she pulled away. Stood up. Smiled tightly. Thanks, she said. I'm going to lie down. And just like that the moment was gone. I watched her walk upstairs and I felt something tug in my chest. A longing. A sadness. A fear that no matter what I did it would never be enough. I started noticing other things too. How she always smiled when I entered a room but the smile never reached her eyes. How she thanked me for everything but never asked me for anything. How she was polite. Always polite. But never personal. It was like she'd built a wall between us. Invisible but solid. And no matter how hard I tried I couldn't break through. I talked to my husband about it once. We were lying in bed. The lights off. His hand resting on my arm. Do you think she likes me? I asked quietly. What? Of course she does. Why would you even ask that? I don't know. She just seems distant sometimes. He sighed. She's adjusting. It's a big change moving in with us. Give her time. I have been giving her time. Then give her more. I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him that time wasn't the issue. That something else was wrong. But I didn't. Because maybe he was right. Maybe I was being impatient. Maybe I expected too much too soon. So I kept trying. I kept smiling. Kept cooking. Kept asking questions. Kept offering help. But the distance remained. And slowly it started to wear on me. I began second-guessing everything I said. Everything I did. I wondered if I was too involved. Or not involved enough. If I asked too many questions. Or not enough. I felt like I was walking on eggshells in my own home. And the worst part? She didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did and she just didn't care. I tried talking to my friends about it. One of them said that's just how daughters-in-law are. They're polite but distant. Don't take it personally. But how could I not take it personally? This was my life. My home. My family. Another friend said maybe she's closer to her own mother. That's natural. You can't compete with that. I didn't want to compete. I just wanted to be included. I started paying closer attention to her phone habits. She was always on it. Texting. Scrolling. Smiling at the screen. But when I walked into the room she'd flip it over. Or lock it. Or put it away entirely. At first I thought maybe she was just private. But then I started noticing a pattern. She'd get a call. Glance at the screen. Look at me. Then say I'll take this upstairs. Every single time. It didn't matter who it was. Or what time of day. If I was nearby she left the room. I told myself it was nothing. But deep down I knew better. One evening I was cleaning the kitchen and she was sitting at the table on her phone. She laughed at something. A light happy sound. What's so funny? I asked warmly. She looked up startled. Oh, nothing. Just a meme. She turned her phone off and stood up. I'm going to take a shower. And she left. I stood there holding a dish towel and felt a familiar ache settle in my chest. Why couldn't she share that with me? Why couldn't she show me the meme and laugh with me instead of shutting me out? I didn't understand. I still don't. I thought about my own relationship with my mother-in-law. How open I was with her. How I invited her into my life without hesitation. I called her mom from day one. I asked her for advice. I valued her opinion. I wanted her to feel needed. And she did. We had a beautiful relationship. I thought I could have that too. But the more I tried the more I realized it wasn't going to happen. Not with her. Not like this. And it hurt. God, it hurt. Because I wasn't asking for much. I wasn't asking to be her best friend. I wasn't asking to replace her mother. I was just asking to be seen. To be valued. To be trusted. But she didn't trust me. I didn't know why. And I didn't know how to fix it. So I kept trying. Kept smiling. Kept pretending everything was fine. Even when it wasn't. Even when my heart was heavy with questions I couldn't ask. Even when I lay awake at night wondering what I did wrong. Because that's what good mothers-in-law do. They stay quiet. They stay patient. They give space. Even when it breaks them. It started with small things. Tiny shifts I almost didn't notice at first. A laugh cut short when I walked into the kitchen. A conversation that ended mid-sentence the moment I appeared. Whispers that dissolved into silence as soon as my footsteps echoed down the hall. At first I told myself I was imagining it. That they weren't actually stopping their conversation because of me. That it was just coincidence. But then it happened again. And again. And again. Until I couldn't ignore it anymore. I'd walk into a room and find them sitting together on the couch. Her phone between them. Both of them staring at the screen. Smiling. Sometimes laughing. But the second they heard me, their heads would snap up. The phone would disappear. The smiles would fade into something polite and distant. "Oh hey Mom," my son would say casually. Too casually. "Hi," I'd reply, trying to sound normal. "What are you two up to?" "Nothing much. Just talking." "About what?" He'd shrug. "Just stuff." And that was it. No details. No invitation to join. Just a vague dismissal that left me standing there feeling like an intruder in my own home. I started noticing her phone habits more closely. She was always holding it. Always glancing at it. Always typing something with a small secretive smile on her face. But whenever I came near, she'd lock the screen. Flip it over. Slide it into her pocket. Like she was hiding something. And maybe she was. One afternoon I walked into the living room and found her sitting on the chair talking on the phone. Her voice was soft. Warm. Full of emotion. "I know, Mom. I miss you too." I froze. She hadn't heard me come in. I stood there for a moment, unsure whether to stay or leave. Before I could decide, she turned her head and saw me. Her eyes went wide. "I have to go," she said quickly into the phone. "I'll call you later." She hung up. The air between us felt heavy. I tried to smile. "Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt." "You didn't," she said too quickly. "I was just finishing up." She stood and walked past me without another word. I stood there staring at the empty chair and felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Why did she hang up the second she saw me? Why did she look so guilty? I wanted to ask her. But I didn't. Because I didn't know how. The next day I tried to bring it up with my son. We were alone in the garage. He was fixing something on his car. I handed him tools and tried to find the right words. "Can I ask you something?" I said carefully. "Sure. Have you noticed that your wife seems a little distant lately?" He glanced at me. "Distant how?" "I don't know. Like she doesn't talk to me much anymore. And when I walk into a room, she stops whatever she's doing. It feels like she's avoiding me." He wiped his hands on a rag and sighed. "Mom, she's not avoiding you. She's just busy." "Busy with what?" "Work. Life. Stuff." "I don't know. Does she talk to you about it?" "About what?" "About whatever she's dealing with. About why she's so secretive." He frowned. "Secretive? She's not secretive." "She is though. She's always on her phone. And every time I come near her, she hides it. Maybe she's just private. Or maybe she doesn't trust me." He looked at me then. Really looked at me. "Mom, where is this coming from?" "I don't know. I just feel like something's changed. Like she's pulling away and I don't understand why." He put the rag down and crossed his arms. "You're overthinking this." "Am I?" "Yes." "She's fine. We're fine. You're fine. Everything is fine." But it didn't feel fine. It felt like something was slipping through my fingers and I didn't know how to hold on. That night I heard her on the phone again. I was in my room reading when her voice drifted through the wall. Muffled but audible. I couldn't make out the words, but I could hear the tone. Soft. Tender. Emotional. I put my book down and listened. Not because I wanted to spy. But because I needed to understand. I heard her laugh. Then a long pause. Then her voice again, quieter this time. I wish I could tell her, but I don't think she'd understand. My heart stopped. Tell her what? Tell who? Me. Was she talking about me? I sat there frozen. Straining to hear more. But the conversation shifted. Her voice became too quiet. I couldn't make out anything else. Eventually I heard her say goodnight and the call ended. I lay back against the pillows and stared at the ceiling. I don't think she'd understand. What did that mean? What wasn't she telling me? And why did she think I wouldn't understand? I wanted to march into her room right then and demand answers. But I didn't. Because I was afraid. Afraid of what she might say. Afraid of what I might learn. Afraid that the truth would hurt more than the not knowing. The next morning I tried to act normal. I made breakfast. Set the table. Smiled when she came downstairs. "Good morning," I said brightly. "Morning," she replied without looking at me. She poured coffee. Scrolled through her phone. Barely acknowledged my presence. My son came down a few minutes later. He kissed her on the cheek. Grabbed toast. Asked her about her day. She smiled at him. A real smile. The kind she used to give me. "It's going to be busy," she said. "Lots of meetings." "You'll do great," he said. "Thanks, babe." They talked easily. Comfortably. Like I wasn't even there. I felt invisible. I cleared my throat. "Any plans for dinner tonight?" They both looked at me. "Not sure," my son said. "We might order something. I can cook if you want." "That's okay, Mom. Don't worry about it." I nodded. "Okay." But inside I felt dismissed. Like my offer didn't matter. Like I didn't matter. I spent the rest of the day trying to stay busy. I cleaned. I organized. I ran errands. But my mind kept circling back to the same thoughts. Why is she pulling away? What did I do wrong? Why doesn't she trust me? I didn't have answers. And that made everything worse. That evening I was folding laundry in the hallway when I heard her door close. A few seconds later her voice drifted out. "Mom, I really need to talk to you." I stopped. My hands gripping a towel. I stood there listening. "I know," she continued. "I just don't know what to do. I feel stuck." A long pause. "No, I can't tell her. She wouldn't get it." My chest tightened. She was talking about me. I was sure of it now. I felt a wave of hurt wash over me. Followed by anger. Then confusion. Then sadness. I forced myself to walk away before I heard anything else. I went to my room and closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to breathe. She wouldn't get it. Why did she think that? What did she think I wouldn't understand? I'd been nothing but supportive. Nothing but kind. Nothing but patient. So why did she see me as someone she couldn't trust? I didn't know. And I didn't know how to ask. Because asking would mean admitting I'd been listening. And I didn't want to be that person. The invasive mother-in-law who eavesdrops and demands explanations. I wanted to be the person she came to willingly. The person she trusted. The person she called Mom. But I wasn't. And I didn't know if I ever would be. Over the next few days the pattern continued. Conversations that ended when I entered. Phone calls taken in private. Screens locked and hidden. Smiles that didn't reach her eyes. Polite distance that felt like a wall. I tried to talk to my husband again. He told me the same thing. Give her time. She'll come around. But I was tired of waiting. Tired of being patient. Tired of pretending everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. One night I couldn't take it anymore. I knocked on her door. "Come in," she said. I opened it slowly. She was sitting on the bed with her laptop. She looked up surprised. "Hey, is everything okay?" I nodded. "Can we talk for a minute?" "Sure." I stepped inside and closed the door behind me. I sat on the edge of the bed and tried to find the right words. "I feel like we haven't really connected lately," I said carefully. "And I just want to make sure you're okay. That we're okay." She blinked at me. "We're fine. Why wouldn't we be?" "I don't know. You just seem distant. Like you're pulling away." "I'm not pulling away. I've just been busy." "With what?" "Work. Life. You know." "Do you feel comfortable here? In this house?" "Of course. Because if there's something I'm doing that's bothering you, I want to know. I want to fix it." She shook her head. "You're not doing anything wrong. Really. I'm just adjusting." "Adjusting to what?" "To everything. Marriage. Living here. All of it." I nodded slowly. "Okay. But if you ever need to talk, I'm here. You know that, right?" "I know." She smiled. But it didn't reach her eyes. And I knew. She was lying. Something was wrong. And she wasn't going to tell me. I stood up. Okay. Well. Good night. Good night. I left the room and closed the door behind me. I stood in the hallway and felt tears prick at my eyes. I was losing her. Or maybe I never had her to begin with. It happened on a Tuesday evening. I remember because Tuesdays were always quiet in our house. My son worked late. Dinner was simple. The television hummed softly in the background. I was in the kitchen washing dishes when I heard her voice again. At first I tried not to listen. I turned on the faucet louder. Focused on scrubbing a plate. Told myself to respect her privacy. But then I heard something that made my hands stop moving. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up, Mom. My heart thudded in my chest. I turned off the water. The house went silent except for her voice drifting from the living room. She was sitting on the couch. Back to me. Phone pressed to her ear. I stood frozen in the doorway. Hidden by the wall. Barely breathing. I know, she continued. But it's so hard. I feel like I'm pretending all the time. A pause. No, she doesn't know. And I don't think I can tell her. Another pause. Because she'll be hurt. Or worse, she'll try to fix it. And I don't want her to fix it. I just want to feel like I can be myself. My throat tightened. I wanted to move. To walk away. To give her privacy. But I couldn't. I was rooted to the spot. She sighed. I miss you so much. I wish I could just come home and not have to deal with all this. Tears stung my eyes. Home. She didn't think of this place as home. She thought of somewhere else. Someone else. And I was just an obstacle. Something to deal with. I backed away slowly. Carefully. My heart pounding so loud I was sure she'd hear it. I made it to my room and closed the door. I sat on the bed and pressed my hands over my mouth to keep from sobbing out loud. She felt like she was pretending. She didn't feel like herself here. She missed home. And home wasn't here. It wasn't me. I replayed her words over and over in my mind. I don't think I can tell her. She'll try to fix it. I just want to feel like I can be myself. What did that mean? Was I suffocating her? Was I overbearing? Was I the problem? I thought about all the things I'd done to make her feel welcome. To make her feel loved. But maybe that was the issue. Maybe I tried too hard. Maybe I smothered her with kindness when what she really wanted was distance. I didn't know. And that was the worst part. I didn't know what I'd done wrong. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't even know if I should try. I lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. My chest ached. My mind raced. I felt like I was mourning something I never actually had. A relationship I thought we were building. A bond one thought was forming. But it was all in my head. She never wanted that. She was just being polite. Playing the role of the good daughter-in-law while secretly wishing she was somewhere else. I thought about confronting her. Walking back out there and saying, I heard you. I know how you feel. Let's talk about it. But what good would that do? She didn't want to talk to me. She wanted to talk to her mother. The woman she actually trusted. The woman she actually called Mom. I wasn't that person. And I never would be. I heard her footsteps in the hallway a little while later. She paused outside my door. For a moment I thought she might knock. But she didn't. She just kept walking. And I lay there in the dark feeling more alone than I'd felt in years. The next morning I woke up exhausted. I hadn't slept much. My mind kept replaying her words. I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. I dragged myself out of bed and went through the motions. Shower. Clothes. Coffee. I avoided looking at myself in the mirror. I didn't want to see the hurt in my own eyes. When I went downstairs she was already at the table. Morning, I said quietly. Morning, she replied without looking up. We sat in silence. I wanted to say something. Anything. But what? I couldn't tell her I'd overheard her conversation. That would make things worse. But I also couldn't pretend like nothing was wrong. So I just sat there. Sipping coffee. Feeling the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on me. My son came down a few minutes later. He kissed her. Grabbed breakfast. Checked his phone. You okay, Mom? He asked, glancing at me. I'm fine, I lied. You sure? You look tired. Just didn't sleep well. He nodded and went back to his phone. No one pressed further. No one asked what was really wrong. And I didn't offer. Because how could I explain it? How could I tell them that I was breaking inside and no one even noticed? That evening I made dinner. I set the table. Called them down. Served the food. We ate in near silence. A few comments about work. About the weather. About nothing important. I watched her across the table. She looked tired too. Her eyes distant. Her smile absent. I wondered if she was thinking about her mother. If she was counting down the minutes until she could call her again. If she was wishing she was anywhere but here. Probably. After dinner I cleaned up alone. She disappeared upstairs. My son went to his office. I stood at the sink scrubbing dishes and felt the loneliness settle over me like a heavy blanket. This was my life now. Living with people who felt like strangers. Trying to connect with someone who didn't want to be connected to. Pretending everything was fine when it was falling apart. I heard her voice again later that night. Soft. Muffled. Coming from her room. I didn't try to listen this time. I didn't need to. I already knew what she was saying. I already knew how she felt. And there was nothing I could do about it. I sat in my room with a book in my lap that I wasn't reading. The words blurred together. My mind wandered. I thought about my own mother. How she would know exactly what to say right now. How she would hold me and tell me it would be okay. How she would give me advice that actually made sense. But she was gone. And I had no one to turn to. No one who understood. No one who could help me make sense of this mess. I felt a tear slide down my cheek. Then another. I didn't bother wiping them away. I just let them fall. Because what was the point? No one was watching. No one cared. I was alone in my pain. And I had to figure out how to live with it. I spent the next few days in a fog. Going through the motions. Smiling when I was supposed to. Staying quiet when I wasn't. But inside I was unraveling. Every time she closed a door I flinched. Every time she took a call I felt a stab of rejection. Every time she said mom to someone else I felt a piece of myself crumble. But something else was happening too. Something I didn't expect. Clarity. The more I observed. The more I listened without reacting. The more I stepped back and watched. The more I understood. She wasn't trying to hurt me. She wasn't being cruel or vindictive. She was just struggling. And she didn't know how to tell me. I started noticing the small things. How she tensed up when I asked her questions. How she smiled too quickly when I offered help. How she avoided eye contact when we were alone. She wasn't distant because she hated me. She was distant because she felt pressure. Pressure to be someone she wasn't. Pressure to fit into a role she didn't know how to play. Pressure to make everyone happy while losing herself in the process. And I realized something. I'd been part of that pressure. Not intentionally. But by trying so hard to be close to her. By offering so much help. By being so involved. I'd made her feel like she had to perform. Like she couldn't just be. And that broke my heart. Because the last thing I wanted was to make her feel trapped. I sat in my room one afternoon with my journal open. I hadn't written in it for months. But now I needed to. I needed to organize my thoughts. To make sense of what I was feeling. I wrote about the phone calls. The distance. The hurt. But I also wrote about her. About how young she was. How far from her own family. How overwhelmed she must feel. I wrote about my own experience as a young bride. How scared I was. How I missed my mother. How I didn't know how to balance my old life with my new one. And I realized. She was going through the same thing. But unlike me, she didn't have a mother-in-law she felt safe with. She had me. And for whatever reason I made her feel like she had to hide. That hurt. But it also gave me something. Perspective. I closed the journal and sat back. I thought about what I wanted. Not what I thought I should want. Not what society expected. But what I actually wanted. I wanted her to feel safe. I wanted her to feel free. I wanted her to know she didn't have to pretend around me. And if that meant stepping back. If that meant giving her space. If that meant letting go of my need to be needed. Then that's what I'd do. Because this wasn't about me. It was about her. And maybe that's what love really is. Not holding on. But knowing when to let go. Over the next few days I changed my approach. I stopped asking so many questions. I stopped offering help unless she asked. I stopped hovering in the kitchen when she was there. I gave her space. Real space. And something shifted. She started lingering a little longer at breakfast. She asked me about my day without me prompting her. She smiled at me. A real smile. Small things. But they mattered. One evening she came into the kitchen while I was cooking. "Need any help?" she asked. I glanced at her surprised. "Sure. You can chop the vegetables if you want." She nodded and grabbed a knife. We worked side by side in comfortable silence. After a few minutes she spoke. "I'm sorry if I've been distant lately." I looked at her. "You don't have to apologize." "I do though. I know I've been kind of closed off." I put down my spoon and turned to face her. "You don't owe me anything," I said gently. "I know this is a big adjustment. And I don't want you to feel like you have to be anything other than yourself." She blinked at me. Her eyes shiny. "Thank you," she whispered. We didn't say anything else. But something passed between us. An understanding. A truce. Maybe even the beginning of trust. That night I heard her on the phone again. But this time I didn't feel hurt. I felt glad. Glad that she had someone to talk to. Glad that she wasn't alone. Glad that she was taking care of herself in the way she needed. Because that's what mattered. Not whether she called me mom. Not whether she confided in me. But whether she was okay. And if talking to her mother helped her be okay. Then I was grateful for that. I sat on my bed and felt a sense of peace I hadn't felt in weeks. This wasn't about me winning some invisible competition. This wasn't about earning a title or a role. This was about being a safe presence in her life. Even if that presence was quiet. Even if it was in the background. Even if it looked nothing like what I imagined. I thought about my own mother-in-law again. How patient she was. How she never demanded anything from me. How she let me come to her in my own time. And I realized. That's what I needed to do. Let her come to me. In her own time. On her own terms. Without pressure. Without expectation. Just presence. I could do that. I would do that. Because that's what love looks like. 3 days later I knew it was time. Time to stop wondering. Time to stop assuming. Time to stop hurting in silence. I needed to ask. Not in anger. Not in accusation. But in honesty. I found her alone one afternoon. She was sitting in the living room reading a book. Sunlight streaming through the window. A cup of tea beside her. She looked peaceful. I almost didn't want to disturb her. But I had to. "Can we talk?" I asked softly. She looked up. Her eyes cautious. "Sure." I sat down across from her. Took a breath. "I want to ask you something. And I need you to be honest with me." She closed her book slowly. "Okay." I folded my hands in my lap and looked at her. "I've noticed that you talk to someone on the phone a lot. And I know it's your mother." She stiffened. "I'm not asking you to stop," I said quickly. "I'm not upset about it. But I need to understand something." She waited. "Why do you feel like you have to hide it from me?" Her face crumpled. For a moment I thought she was going to cry. Then she did. Silent tears sliding down her cheeks. I moved to sit beside her. I didn't touch her. I just waited. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to hide it. I just didn't want to hurt you." "Hurt me how?" She wiped her eyes. "Because I know you've been trying so hard to make me feel welcome. To be there for me. And I appreciate it. I really do. But sometimes it feels like too much." "Too much how?" She took a shaky breath. "Like I have to be a certain way around you. Like I can't mess up. Like I have to be the perfect daughter-in-law or I'll disappoint you." My heart sank. "You don't have to be perfect," I said gently. "I never expected that." "I know. But it feels that way. And when I call my mom, it's the only time I feel like I can just be myself. I don't have to try. I don't have to perform. I can just talk. And you feel like you can't do that with me." It wasn't a question. She nodded. I sat back and let that sink in. She wasn't rejecting me. She was protecting herself. From me. From the version of me she thought I wanted her to be. "I'm sorry," I said quietly. "I didn't realize I was making you feel that way." You weren't trying to. I know that. But I'm still figuring out how to be married. How to live here. How to balance everything. And sometimes I just need my mom. Of course you do. She looked at me surprised. Your mother is your mother, I continued. She raised you. She knows you. She's your safe place. I would never want to take that away from you. Her eyes filled with tears again. I thought you'd be upset if you knew how much I talked to her. I thought you'd think I didn't appreciate you. I reached for her hand. I'm not upset. I'm glad you have her. I'm glad you have someone who makes you feel safe. She squeezed my hand. Thank you. But I need you to know something too. She waited. You don't have to pretend around me. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to perform. I just want you to be comfortable. To be yourself. And if that means taking calls behind closed doors because that's what you need right now, then that's okay. She let out a breath. Really? Really? She hugged me then. It was the first real hug we'd had in months. And it felt like a release. Like something heavy lifting off both of us. When she pulled back, she was smiling through her tears. I've been so scared, she admitted. Scared of disappointing you. Scared of not being enough. Scared of losing myself in all of this. You're not losing yourself. You're just adjusting. And that takes time. She nodded. I just wish I'd told you sooner. I wish I'd asked sooner. We sat there for a while. Talking. Really talking. She told me about the pressure she felt. About how she missed her family. About how she was still learning how to be a wife and a daughter-in-law at the same time. I listened. And I didn't try to fix anything. I just listened. Because that's what she needed. She also told me about her mother. How they talked every night. How it helped her process her day. How it made her feel grounded. I'm glad you have that, I said. Truly. She smiled. I was so afraid you'd be jealous. I'm not jealous. I'm grateful. Grateful that you have someone who loves you that much. Her eyes softened. You're really okay with it? I'm really okay with it. She leaned back and sighed. I feel so much lighter now. Me too, I admitted. And I did. Because the not knowing had been the hardest part. But now I knew. And knowing made all the difference. That evening at dinner the atmosphere was different. Lighter. Warmer. We talked more. Laughed more. Shared more. My son noticed. You two seem happier, he said. We are, I replied. He looked between us. What changed? We talked, his wife said simply. He smiled. Good. I'm glad. And that was it. No big drama. No confrontation. No explosion. Just honesty. And understanding. And space for both of us to breathe. Later that night I heard her on the phone again. But this time I didn't feel hurt. I felt peace. Because I understood now. She wasn't choosing her mother over me. She was just choosing what she needed. And that was okay. I didn't need to be her everything. I just needed to be present. And safe. And patient. The rest would come in time. Or maybe it wouldn't. And that was okay too. Because love isn't about control. It's about freedom. And I wanted her to be free. A week after our conversation, something beautiful happened. She asked me to sit with her. Just the two of us. No husband. No distractions. We sat on the porch with tea in our hands and the evening air cool around us. She was quiet for a while. Then she spoke. I've been thinking a lot about what we talked about. I nodded. Me too. And I realized something. What's that? She turned to look at me. I've been calling my mom every night, not because I don't trust you, but because I didn't know how to let you in without losing myself. I listened. She continued. My whole life my mom was the person I went to. For everything. Good days. Bad days. Confusing days. She was my constant. And when I got married I felt like I was supposed to replace that with you. But I didn't know how. You don't have to replace it, I said gently. I know that now. But I didn't before. I thought being a good daughter-in-law meant giving up parts of myself. Parts of my old life. And I didn't want to do that. So I hid it instead. And that made you feel guilty? Yes. All the time. I reached for her hand. You don't have to feel guilty for loving your mother. Or for needing her. That doesn't mean you're failing at this. Her eyes filled with tears. Thank you for saying that. I mean it. She wiped her eyes and smiled. You know what's funny? What? I think I've been so focused on not losing my mom that I didn't realize I could gain another one. My breath caught. Not to replace her, she added quickly, but to add to my life. Someone else I could trust. Someone else who cares about me. I felt tears sting my own eyes. I'd like that. Me too. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she spoke again. I think the word mom scared me. Why? Because it felt like a claim. Like if I called you mom, I'd be giving something up. Or betraying someone. Or stepping into a role I didn't know how to fill. I understand. But I'm starting to realize it doesn't have to be that heavy. It can just be a word. Or it doesn't have to be a word at all. It can just be a feeling. A feeling of what? Of being cared for. Of being seen. Of being valued. I smiled. That's all I ever wanted. She squeezed my hand. I know. We finished our tea in comfortable silence. And for the first time in months I felt like we were on the same page. Not because she called me mom. But because she saw me. Really saw me. And I saw her too. Over the following weeks our relationship continued to shift. She didn't stop calling her mother. I didn't expect her to. But she started including me more. She'd tell me about her day without me having to ask. She'd sit with me in the evenings and we'd talk about nothing and everything. She'd laugh more freely. Smile more openly. And slowly I felt the wall between us come down. One afternoon she showed me a photo on her phone. It's my mom, she said. I talk about you to her all the time. I looked at the photo. A kind face. Warm eyes. You do? Yeah. I told her about our conversation. About how patient you've been. She said I'm lucky to have you. My throat tightened. That means a lot. She is too, you know. Who? My mom. She's grateful you're taking care of me. I felt tears prick my eyes. I'm grateful too. Grateful that she raised someone so thoughtful. She smiled. You should talk to her sometime. I'd like that. And a few days later I did. She called her mother while we were in the kitchen together. Mom, she said into the phone. Someone wants to say hi. She handed me the phone. I took it nervously. Hello. The voice on the other end was warm and gentle. Hello. I've heard so much about you. I've heard about you too. We talked for a few minutes. About small things. About family. About how grateful we both were for the young woman we both loved. When the call ended I handed the phone back. She was smiling at me. See? Not so scary. No, I agreed. Not scary at all. That night I lay in bed and thought about everything that had happened. How hurt I'd been. How lost I'd felt. How much I'd wanted something I didn't even know how to name. But now I understood. I didn't need her to call me mom. I didn't need her to choose me over anyone else. I just needed her to know I was there. That I cared. That I wasn't going anywhere. And now she knew. And that was enough. Because the word mom isn't magic. It doesn't create connection. It's just a label. What matters is the feeling beneath it. The trust. The care. The presence. And we were building that. Slowly. Carefully. Honestly. And that was more valuable than any title could ever be. 6 months later everything felt different. Not perfect. But real. She still called her mother every few days. Sometimes I heard her. Sometimes I didn't. But it didn't bother me anymore. Because I knew where I stood. I knew I mattered to her. Not because she told me every day. But because I could feel it. In the way she asked my opinion. In the way she lingered after dinner to talk. In the way she hugged me goodbye when she left for work. Small things. But they meant everything. One evening we were sitting together in the living room. My son was out. The house was quiet. She looked at me and smiled. Can I tell you something? Of course. I've been thinking about what to call you. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, yeah. I know I don't call you mom. And I don't know if I ever will. But I want you to know it's not because I don't care about you. I know. It's just that word feels so big. And I'm still figuring out what it means to me. You don't have to explain. I want to though. Because I want you to know that even if I don't call you mom, you're still important to me. You're still someone I trust. Someone I love. My eyes filled with tears. That means more to me than you know. She smiled. Good. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she spoke again. Maybe one day I'll call you Mom. Or maybe I won't. But either way you'll always be family to me. I reached for her hand. That's all I need to hear. And it was. Because I finally understood. The word didn't matter. The feeling did. And the feeling was there. Strong. Real. Growing. That night I wrote in my journal again. I wrote about the journey we'd been on. The pain. The confusion. The growth. I wrote about how I'd learned to let go of my expectations. To stop trying to force connection. To trust that love could grow in its own time. I wrote about how she'd taught me what it means to be patient. To be present. To be open. And I wrote about how grateful I was. Not for the title. But for the relationship. A few weeks later she surprised me. We were in the kitchen baking bread again. Just like we had months ago. She kneaded the dough carefully. Her movements more confident now. You know, she said without looking up. I think I finally get it. Get what? What it means to have more than one mom. I stopped what I was doing and looked at her. She continued. I used to think I could only have one. That if I let you in I'd be pushing my mom out. But that's not how it works, is it? No. It's not. You can love more than one person. You can need more than one person. And it doesn't take anything away from anyone. Exactly. She smiled. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're part of my life. And even if I don't always say it, I hope you know I see you. I appreciate you. I do, I whispered. I do now. We finished the bread in comfortable silence. When it came out of the oven golden and perfect, she took a photo. Then she looked at me. Want to be in it? I blinked. What? The photo. Come stand next to me. I hesitated. Then nodded. We stood side by side. The bread between us. Her arm around my shoulder. She took the photo and smiled at the screen. Perfect, she said. Who are you sending it to? I asked. My mom. And a few friends. She typed quickly, then hit send. I felt a warmth spread through my chest. Not because she was including me. But because she wasn't hiding me anymore. That night I went to bed feeling lighter than I had in a long time. I realized that the journey I'd been on wasn't just about her. It was about me too. Learning to let go. Learning to trust. Learning to love without needing anything in return. And in doing that I'd found something I didn't even know I was looking for. Peace. Not the kind that comes from getting what you want. But the kind that comes from accepting what is. She might never call me Mom. And that was okay. Because I didn't need the word anymore. I had something better. I had her trust. Her respect. Her presence. And that was more than enough. A few months later we were sitting on the porch again. The evening was warm. The sky painted in shades of pink and orange. She turned to me and smiled. You know what I realized? What? You never asked me to call you Mom. I didn't. Why not? I thought about it. Because I wanted you to choose it. Not feel obligated. She nodded slowly. I think that's why I feel safe with you now. Because I didn't push? Because you let me figure it out on my own. I smiled. I'm glad. Me too. We sat in silence watching the sun set. And I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Not for the title. Not for the word. But for the relationship we'd built. Slowly. Patiently. Honestly. A relationship built on trust. On space. On understanding. A relationship that didn't need a label to be real. Because in the end love isn't something you claim. It's something you earn. One moment at a time. One conversation at a time. One choice at a time. And we'd both chosen each other. Not because we had to. But because we wanted to. And that made all the difference. As I sat there watching the last light fade from the sky, I thought about everything I'd learned. That love doesn't look the way you expect it to. That connection can't be forced. That patience is a gift you give yourself. That letting go doesn't mean giving up. And that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply be present. Without expectation. Without demand. Just presence. And in that presence love grows. Quietly. Slowly. Beautifully. I looked at the young woman beside me. The one I'd worried over. The one I'd misunderstood. The one I'd learned to love in a whole new way. And I smiled. Because I realized something. She didn't need to call me Mom. She already saw me as one. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.